Now, if I woke up tomorrow, $1 million in debt, again, with no savings and no assets, I wouldn't panic. I'd follow, in fact, this exact plan to rebuild and create my cash flow fast. Why? Because I had to do it before. All right, so how was I able to really rebuild that again? Because like I mentioned, I was over $1 million in debt back in the last recession, the 2008 crisis. I went from financially free to all of a sudden financially broke, right? I was in the hole, $1 million by the time all was said and done. And so I had all this debt I had to pay off. Yes, I sold off assets that helped a little bit. And just so you know, I'm gonna just plug this right now. If you want to know more in depth, this is just a short video, but you want to know more in depth, there's a cash flow secrets. You should check out our website right here in the description below that actually really spells this out in more detail. But let me just give you really quickly what I had to do, and pretty much in this order. First and foremost, what did I do? I started tracking my money again. See, money is kind of like oxygen. It's like air. You never really count the number of breaths you have until all of a sudden that air runs out, right? Same thing with money. When money runs out, you start counting it. What I should have been doing from the beginning is I should have been counting and tracking my money. So if you all of a sudden find yourself $1 million in debt, which I hope you never do, and I rarely ever meet somebody who's been in this place, and if they have, they usually become a multi-millionaire later like I did. I'm just saying, you don't have to do this to become a multi-millionaire. But we had to start tracking our money. We had to start seeing what's coming in and what's going out. We had to get real and figure out what kind of things can we cut? How can we trim the fat? What kind of costs? If you're a business owner, can you trim the fat in your business and make it more lean and mean so it's more profitable? How do you do that in your home too? How do you start trimming the fat and make it more lean and mean? For me, I ended up selling off assets, which is another one of those cash flow secrets. I sold off assets. I got rid of the house that I had. I literally turned in my Mercedes, even though I was upside down in it, had to pay more debt to be able to pay that off. But I turned it in, I got rid of it. I started downsizing my stuff. I got out of that house. I got into a house that was like a quarter of the monthly payment to live in. And so I did that. I started getting everything whittled down, as low as I can go. In my case, I got down to even $4,000 a month, which was insane considering I had 5 small children at that time. Now, $4,000 a month back in like 2010, 2009 was almost like living on about $8,000 a month today, right? But back then, it felt like I was living lean and mean, and I was compared to what I was dealing with before. So tracking your money, make sure you actually understand what's going on. Once you understand where your financial situation is, you have your point A, and you're trying to get to point Z, right? Then you got to make sure you got that plan to keep tracking. So beyond just selling your assets, which some people say, well, that's easy. Of course you can sell your crap. Yes, you can. Clean out your garage, get rid of stuff, throw it away, donate it, and get the tax write-off, right? You can do that, and that's where tax advantages come in play. Can you keep more of your cash that you're making by having more tax advantages? And so what I started doing is I started being much more diligent about make sure I have ways to write off taxes legitimately with my business. So if I was going to go on a trip, I would try to write off the mileage. Well, how do I do that? I'd make it a business trip. I call them bizcations. I would actually go and make sure I would do something that would be business related on that trip. Because the truth is, when you go travel, all you have to do is at least some business activity for at least half those days. So if you're gone for 7 days, that means 4 of those days have to have some sort of business activity. It could be a minute long, it could be hours long, it doesn't matter. Something has to happen. So I try to see if I can meet up with clients along the way, even while I'm traveling. Even if I was stopping somewhere because we were driving, we would stop to see if we could visit a client and just check up on them, see how they're doing financially, talk about business, ask for referrals, whatever you want to do, right? Shoot the breeze. Most of the time they want to ask me advice, which almost always happens. So I would do that. Even when I got to my destination, were there people that I might know that's out there? Could it be somebody who's a potential client that we could talk to out there? Could I also go visit other businesses? Maybe a similar business that I could visit to say, hey, I want to see how you run your business. Can I see how that's done? I use an example a lot of times where if you're an HVAC operator, you might be very locally generated, but maybe you go to Hawaii. You might want to see in Hawaii how HVAC companies run their stuff. Because although they may not use heat very often, they probably use the AC quite a bit, right? So you might visit those operators, see how they do business. You might see that in a different state or different area, but find ways to do business. So finding different tax advantages, even ways to pay for home office expenses, lots of cool ways to do it. Again, we talk more about that in detail in our cash flow secrets. Now, another thing I would do too is my debt. How do I address my debt? Do I invest it? Do I pay off debt? What do I do first? I actually use what I refer to as the cash flow index. I actually had to create this because I had limited resources in 2008. I didn't know what to do. So I started looking at paying off debt like an investment. Because for example, say you have a $10,000 credit card that if you pay it off, you'll free up $200 a month. That's $2,400 a year. That's a 24% rate of return, right? But what if I had a $10,000 car loan that was $500 a month? Now that's $6,000 a year. Paying that off would be like a 60% rate of return on my money. First and foremost, the stocks, Bitcoin, nor even real estate would pay me that much money on either of those situations. So I started forgetting about investing. I started focusing instead on how do I pay off this debt? Which debt to pay off first? And so I'd get really creative with that. I would use this cash flow index where I divide the balance, by the monthly payment, right? The minimum monthly payment. So in the case of $10,000 credit card, that's $200 a month, that's an index of 50. But the $10,000 car loan, that's $500 a month, is a 20 index. I pay off the lowest index first. I pay that off first, then roll that payment into the next one. It's like that debt avalanche or debt snowball methods you hear about, but you're using the cash flow index to determine it instead. The only time I worry about interest rates is when it's a tie. If it's a tie, great, then I go for the higher interest rate and I pay that one off first. But I always go for the lowest index. This is exactly what I did step by step to pay things off. If they were in collections, I didn't worry about it because in collections, I thought, great, there's a judgment or a collection, it'll get paid off eventually, but there's no monthly cash flow to free up. I would hold those off till the end. So I was paying those off one by one, eventually freeing up more cash flow. And of course, this is the number one thing. While you're doing all of this, focus on creating income. But instead of asking, how do I make more money? Instead ask, how do I go about serving more people, solving problems in a unique way that only I can do so that it can earn me money? How can I earn money by helping serve people and solving problems? Creating value. That is the real key to creating lasting income and wealth. That's the best way to do it. And so anytime I've looked in business, I've always been asking not how do I make more money? How do I make more profits? No, it's about what can I do to serve people the best way possible to where I actually I earn a great wage. Because the thing is, I can create little value for many, many, many people. And that's one option. Or I can create a lot of value for few people. This is what I did with consulting. Like we've literally worked with almost 1,000 clients one-on-one to help them improve their cash flow by over $300 million over the last 15 years. You think that's a lot of value? Heck yeah. Have I made $300 million? No. They've made more money than I have, which I'm totally cool with because obviously that's how you know it's a win-win. When they know they're getting more out of the deal than I get, that's a great deal, right? The cool thing is I'm still getting paid too, but of course they're winning as well. That is the key, guys. That is the real secret to wealth. Create more income, control expenses, have cash reserves, and start building up that savings too while you do that. And as you do that along the way, then as you build enough savings, then you can invest for passive income down the road. But again, if you're starting with $1 million in debt starting over, like I said, I would just start there. Focus on that cash flow, tracking your money. Make sure you're finding ways to find and free up cash. And of course, if you want to learn more how to do that, check out this Cash Flow Secrets course that will give you a 50% off little bonus here if you use that link down below. Try that today.